it's a great pleasure to introduce to you this year's Stockholm Water Prize laureate, Professor Joan B. Rose. To quote the Stockholm Prize nominating committee, "The world is blessed with few individuals who can tackle the increasing and changing challenges to clean water and health, from state-of-the-art science through dedicated and original research, then moving into professional dissemination, effective lobbying, and legislative arena, influencing practitioners and raising the general awareness. Joan Rose is the leading example of this extremely rare blend of talents." Laureates of the 2016 Stockholm Water Prize, Professor Joan B. Rose, please come to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Stockholm International Water Institute, the organizing committee, ministries, the mayor of Stockholm. I enjoyed all of the initial presentations. I'm very honored to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm a water microbiologist. I like to go out and take a water sample and bring it back to the lab and look for pathogens. But what was my moment that really moved me? I walked into a town hall. The community and the people there were suffering. You could see the pain in the eyes of the parents whose children had died. There were people that were still working on kidney failure and kidney transplants in this community. There were people that were struggling with reactive arthritis. This was 5 years later, 5 years after the outbreak. The culprits were Campylobacter and E. coli 0157. Fecal contamination of their water supply had occurred. So outbreaks occur all over the world. And the outbreaks are the plane crashes of the water business, of the water industry, affecting communities for quite a long time. Right now, we have cholera, an ancient disease we've known about for quite a long time. And we know how fast cholera moves into a community and how fast it spreads. We have typhoid, antibiotic-resistant typhoid now occurring. At borders, such as between Arizona and Mexico, we've had an outbreak of Guillain-Barré syndrome, where a cluster of people were paralyzed. And even in places that we don't expect it, we have disease outbreaks. If we don't pay attention to our infrastructure, or we start to lose control of our infrastructure. Clostridium difficile, very resistant to chlorination, causing an outbreak because of sewage cross-contamination of water supply. And right now in New Zealand, there are thousands of people in the hospital because of a waterborne outbreak. So old and new pathogens remain a problem. And of course, with the Olympics just going on in Brazil, that brought attention to sewage contamination of recreational waters as well. Now I'll tell you that I believe wastewater, feces, from both humans and animals, are the largest biological threat to water safety around the world. And about 1.5 billion do not have access to sanitation, but it's not just that 1.5 billion. That is affecting more than 5 billion people and their water security. More than half of the global population are affected by this type of pollution. So it's not just about toilets and disposal, it's about watersheds, it's about treatment, adequate treatment. Now, I've been involved in the development of a global water pathogen project. Like I said, I like to go out and take water samples and look for viruses, parasites like Cryptosporidium, and of course bacteria. I kind of grew up with a book on sanitation that described the pathogens for engineers. How can we control these? Published by the World Bank in 1983. But so much has happened since then. A group of us got together to decide to redo this book. But how were we going to do it? So much new knowledge was out there in various places, and so many new pathogens. How long would it take us to get this going? And I can tell you that we decided we'd use the new information technology. Put this on the internet, freely accessible. Gather the data, the quantitative data on pathogens, helminths, protists, bacteria, indicators, source tracking, and make this available with tools using the new technology, not just the technology that's available for water testing, but information technology. So we have the knowledge to act. We know about pathogen concentrations, we know much about their occurrence, and we know much about their survival. We know about the health risks in many cases. We've developed risk frameworks which allow science and policy to merge with the technology, with the management strategy, bringing in the community and decision makers. And we have treatment and control options. But what do we need? Well, we need political will. We need resources. There's no doubt about that. And we need human capital. With these, we can act. Now, I'm a big supporter of new technology for monitoring water. And I think we can use these technologies around the world. The new DNA technology enables us to answer questions that we could never answer before. One of the initial questions that I always get when I go out and I'm looking at a polluted water is, where's the source of the pollution? Where's it coming from? We now have the tools that can tell us, is it human? Is it coming from cattle? Is it coming from chickens? We have that technology, and we've been able to use that technology in Nicaragua, in Africa, and in the United States. What are the hazards and risks? We're going to have to prioritize where we put our dollars. If we look out and say, with the sanitation and sewage revolution, we are going to start building wastewater treatment plants. Where are we going to build them? And how many? How are we going to get started? And where do we want to manage the risk? How low should the risk be? I find it interesting, in the drinking water side, we've decided, and we've had discussion and debates about our safety goals. What risk can we achieve? What risk level, risk reduction can we achieve? We've started to have those discussions in wastewater reuse arena. But we have failed to have these discussions yet around wastewater treatment. How many pathogens do we need to reduce to promote safety? Now, E. coli has been the workhorse of water quality, our bacterial indicator. and we use that globally. We use that in our regulations and our policies throughout the world. But I'm here to tell you that E. coli is not sufficient to help us resolve some of the questions that we have in spending our dollars in the most wise approach. We've moved from 1900s using coliforms. We can now monitor pathogens, and we need to build that capacity around the world. Now, what can we do? Everyone knows monitoring is fairly expensive. We may only have regional labs set up to take so many water samples in. But I can tell you that with much of the data that we have, the global data on population, on the numbers of people served by wastewater, the type of wastewater treatment, we can actually produce global maps. For the first time, global maps of pathogen emissions. A team of interdisciplinary scientists, water microbiologists, people who use models, people who use the mapping technology. We've come together and we've been able to develop maps for cryptosporidium and rotavirus. These maps are fairly good at resolution. They can go down to 100-kilometer grids, which means that we can start to look at our watersheds, our transboundary waters. We can start to look at the emissions of pathogens. We can start to get some coverage around water quality that we could never get before. And we cannot get simply by saying we're going to monitor everywhere, because it's not possible. So we can be strategic. We can be very strategic about our monitoring, and we can produce these global maps. These maps now are being linked to hydrodynamics and the global hydrology professionals. And this is, of course, where climate comes in, because with climate change, you could have very seasonal changes in your hydrology. You could have droughts that last 3, 4, 5 years. And we know when hydrology changes, when climate changes, the concentrations of pathogens are also going to change. Their movement is going to change, their transport is going to change, their survival is going to change, and thus the risk. But we're now bringing these teams together to create risk maps that can be interactive. You can choose your climate scenario. You can choose your wastewater treatment technology scenario. You can look at your opportunities to reduce risk at these watershed levels. So I'm a promoter of what I call water diagnostics. This is not compliance monitoring. This is not daily. This is not to see whether the treatment process is working or whether drinking water is safe. This is to go in and take a look at our sick watersheds. I do believe our waters are degrading around the globe. I don't think our waters are safer now than they were before. And we need these diagnostics to understand the problems so that we can take on the best solutions. Now, these types of data feed in very well to the risk assessment framework, in which we combine the hazard, the dose response, and of course the exposure assessment to look at management strategies. These are science-based, risk-based approaches that can be used for decision making. I've seen in wastewater this idea of energy and resource recovery expanding, and I'm a big supporter of wastewater reuse and of this revolution in resource recovery. And I think energy may be driving a lot of the technology. But what worries me is that we have not evaluated some of the technology at the scales that we're using it and implementing it to be assured that we're still protecting public health. Because ultimately, it's about the protection of the health of the people. Now, biogas systems are going up. In many places, it's providing water, it's providing energy, it's providing sanitation. Yet, this water is still loaded with pathogens. It's loaded with Giardia and Cryptosporidium. It's loaded with E. coli. So the people are still getting sick. So what else do we need as we choose the appropriate technology for the appropriate place? We need to be thinking about public health, water safety, and those risk goals. Now, the GWPP has been in existence since 2004. There are 19 teams. There's over 144 authors from 35 countries. And they're starting to engage with the user community. They're putting the data together. We hope to be publishing these chapters very soon. But it's really the interaction with the user community that is going to guide us on how we create tools for accessing the knowledge. What do you need to know? And what form do you need the information in? We're part of the, with UNESCO, part of the African Water Week. And in Tanzania, they have wastewater lagoons for some of their communities, but they're already overflowing. They're already over capacity. That means they have too many people for the size of lagoons that they have. So the lagoons aren't functioning appropriately. And they want to, in the next 3 to 5 years, implement technology that's going to treat the wastewater for these urban and peri-urban areas that then move out and affect the rural community. So this knowledge, what type of technology are they going to use? How are they going to use it? Where are the innovations occurring that they can implement their strategy? I also think that these investments are part of the blue economy. I think they're part of the sustainable growth. We know we have to train a number of individuals. We know we have to set up labs. And so we do have people working on water diagnostics, but you also need engineers. You need people that understand financing in water, risk communication, watersheds, hydrology, climatologists. We need so many professionals trained to come to the water business. And I think that that's going to be part of the goal. It's going to be part of the sustainable growth. And it's not just about safe drinking water. It's about ecosystem services. It's about all the services that clean water provides. We heard about tourism and recreational water being important, and fisheries being important. All of these are going to rely on clean water. The challenges remain. We've got antibiotic resistance emerging, as I've already mentioned. We still haven't eradicated polio. Had a small polio virus outbreak, and despite all the efforts of the vaccine, and polio is a fecal oral pathogen, and where the feces go, that virus plus hundreds of other types of viruses that can be found in feces are found as well. So we need to think about controlling numerous different pathogens through sanitation, because we won't have vaccines for every single pathogen that might be found in wastewater or in feces. So what I'd like to leave you with is that the GWPP is a network of people from all over the world, and they are ready to work and willing to work with the global community, engage with the global community, find out what you need in terms of knowledge, help with the discourse, bring the disciplines together, and train the next generation of scientists that are going to be needed as we move into this, I think, next phase of water and water quality. I want to thank you again for this opportunity to address you this morning and to be part of this opening session. And I'm looking forward to the week and the discussions around water quality and health. Thank you.